Legend has it that Lady Furina is a memory of a spring never fading, present in the hearts of all those who inhabit Fontaine. Her chorus of little souls watch in awe as a god takes the stage, proving time and time again that she can play any role with ease, almost as if she were born to act. Furina is an interesting one, alright. She's the first playable character we've gotten whose kit and outfit changes depending on her arca alignment, a mechanic newly introduced in the region of Fontaine. This video is going to explore the nuances between Furina's Pneuma and Ousia alignments, both in her design and her characterization. Yes, that's right, we are switching things up a little bit for this video. Normally I make deep dive style videos purely on a character's outfit and its real life influences. So if you're into fashion history and that kind of thing, feel free to subscribe and stick around. Quick disclaimer before we get into it, this is just a collection of observations I found and pieced together. I'm not stating anything as fact. Also, if you care about story spoilers and have not played through the Fontaine Archon questline, do not watch this video. I'll also be briefly mentioning Furina's story quest and a couple of Fontaine world quests. So yeah, please bear that in mind. You have been warned. I know there's some people who watch my videos who don't even play this game though, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you, thank you. Alright, well then, let's begin by taking a closer look at Furina's very first introduction to us all. Furina's initial marketing image was released on the 25th of September 2023. Hoyoverse dropped this splash art of her showing what we now know to be her Pneuma aligned outfit. The caption on this post on Hoyoverse's socials left us with some subtle clues as to how the climactic point of this region's Archon quest would unfold. In a note from the mage known as N, or Nicole, a member of the Hexen Circle, she stated, "Her charismatic parlance, lively wit and elegant bearing, all bear witness to her godly charms. But perhaps the thing that she is most revered for is her unrivaled sense of drama. As the protagonist of a famous play at the Opera Epiclese once put it, life is like the theatre. You never can tell when the twist will come. Furina is as inscrutable as the most cunning of stage characters, her course of action defying all prediction. But when the curtain falls, a hollow feeling invariably starts to creep in. There are those who wonder whether there are moments in the dead of night when even a god like Furina feels the sharp pangs of loneliness." The course of action defying all prediction Nicole refers to here is of course the defiance of the heavenly principles at the hands of Focalor, the real Hydro Archon. However, this is also in reference to the course of Fontaine's catastrophic prophecy being changed. Nicole was giving us a little bit of history and looking to the future there. Hoyoverse pulled a fast one on us over a month later on the 6th of November. Just when we thought we had Furina figured out a little bit, this splash art was dropped. At first glance, I'll admit, even I thought to myself, did they post this twice by accident? But nope, there are a few differences in her design in this one. Her Ousia aligned outfit can be seen here, and the caption to go with it is nothing short of revealing. It is a quote full of love and regret from someone listed as a sinner. From our knowledge of events that occurred in the Fontaine Archon quest, we can deduce that this sinner is Focalor. She could feel joy, sorrow, and everything in between. She could be as vain and conceited or as meek and vulnerable as she wished. As far as I'm concerned, her very imperfections are what make her perfect. Furina was forced to embrace an unyielding demeanour in order to uphold the facade that an impending disaster was not so closely looming. The dramatic rise and fall of her emotions, her human traits, threatened to give way and expose the truth at any unexpected turn, leaving nothing but a flood in its wake. This constant inner turmoil made her seem distracted and often weary, but she would dismiss this as simply being due to a lack of sleep. Her appearances have been kept up for hundreds of years, beloved by all, the grand star of the Opera Epiclese. Regardless of ridding herself of all the sorrow and misery of the world on her shoulders, how could she possibly have given up? Furina is flamboyant and imprudent, and lives for the thrill of the courtroom. She appears to act in a way that disregards any care for the consequences of her actions, and her speech is peppered with bravado and drama. Her enjoyment of the spotlight is solely reserved for positive focus, however. She breaks down completely when something unexpected comes up, or the pre-written script of an interaction she has in her mind doesn't go quite as planned. When faced with these situations, she is impatient and has a childlike temper, and will sometimes make judgments that have no logic or bearing. As we later found out, and like I mentioned already, Furina is not the true Hydro Archon. Focalor, the successor of the previous Hydro Archon Egeria, separated her divinity from her body and spirit. These human attributes were taken and planted into Furina, a perfect being in Focalor's eyes. A curse was placed upon Furina, tasked with maintaining the guise of an Archon, while being unable to die or pursue her own life or happiness so long as Focalor lived. Their existences entwined and deceiving in tandem, Focalor to the heavenly principles and Furina to the people of Fontaine. While she was successful in her task, it wore her down mentally, so much so that she suffered greatly from intense paranoia and self-esteem issues. Despite being cursed with immortality, she remained fearful in situations that seemed deadly. For example, when Arlecchino attacked her looking for the hydronosis, and even more dramatically during her trial, when she was hesitant to dip her hand into the primordial seawater to prove her godliness. Upon being released from her role as an Archon, Furina was free to return to her normal self, no longer burdened with the responsibility of keeping up a centuries-long facade. While still displaying her flamboyant and dramatic traits at times, she now has a softer and humbler approach to interactions with others. But hold on, sure, she now has this newfound freedom, but can we really expect a girl who was essentially entrapped for over 500 years to just snap back to normality in an instant? Of course not. The inner turmoil she felt for so long cannot simply dissolve after it had made a home in her mind for so long. And at first she really struggled when coming to terms with her role having concluded. The lifting of this burden made her feel as if she was no longer needed. She also planned to retire from her life on stage, despite her continued love of acting and theatre. Some close friends came to her aid, however. She realised that her newfound journey of self-discovery meant she did not have to live in solitude anymore. Her time on stage was not yet fated to come to a close, so she now continues this line of work, more often taking a behind-the-scenes role with the occasional appearance on stage. She is slowly learning to accept her new identity, not as the Hydro Archon, but simply as herself, with flaws and all. Alright, now that we've gone over some of Furina's background in the main story, let's delve into some theories behind her Pneuma and Ousia alignments, and what they could represent for her. Firstly, I am aware that the powers of Pneuma and Ousia within Teyvat were harnessed in order to create the Arca energy source. This information was shown in detail during the Narzitzenkreuz Institute World Quest, released in patch 4.0. There are plenty of other content creators out there who do a much better job of covering in-game lore than I ever could. So I recommend watching this particular video by a creator called Roozevelt if you'd like to learn more about the Narzitzenkreuz story. It's truly fascinating stuff and they did a great job of dissecting the information. I'll link it below in the description here as well so you can check it out. On this channel, however, we focus more on the real-life influences these elements come from. Ousia is a philosophical and theological term borrowed from the ancient Greek word referring to the divine essence of a god or the essential nature of a being. Greek historians such as Socrates theorize that the word was used as an equivalent for the word hypostasis, which is a term used in early Christianity and Gnosticism to represent the Trinity, what is commonly known as the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In Gnosticism, the term is associated with a being's origin, also referred to as its underlying reality. Now hold on, let's back up for a second because this is already getting very theory heavy and I am not about to recite a thesis on religious theology, thank you very much. I've already mentioned two other words that we Genshin veterans are very familiar with, hypostasis and Gnostic, or rather Gnosis. You know, the object that makes an Archon an Archon. Well, in Gnosticism, the belief is that human beings contain a piece of a god within themselves, which has fallen from the immaterial world into their bodies. The hypostasis, yes, those big angry Rubik's cubes you farm ascension materials from, is a representation of the substance of a god and the external influences through which it is manifested. But wait, didn't we just say that Ousia and hypostasis could be used interchangeably in terms of substance? Well, this is where things get even more complicated, largely due to mistranslations over the years from Greek to English, but also due to the fact that the philosophers who were penning the language all the way back then could hardly agree on the exact definitions themselves. Alright, think of it this way. You have the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit. Those are 3 blocks of Ousia substance. If you take those 3 and mash them together, that is what makes the substance known as a hypostasis. And how exactly does this relate to Furina or any other Fontanian with an Ousia alignment? I am so glad you asked. Well, because these particular blocks are representative of the Son within the Trinity. That's S-O-N, not S-U-N, just to be clear, okay? In a special case like Furina's, We can think of the Trinity as Focalor, Furina, and the Heavenly Principles. Her Ousia alignment and the outfit she wears while in this state are symbolic of her more human traits. Her tumultuous and irregular emotional states, and her constant struggle when deciphering her place within the world. I went back and dug through every one of Furina's appearances throughout the entire Archon questline, and found that we never actually see her Ousia aligned outfit until the scene in which she meets Focalor for the very first time in the mirror. At this stage, she remains completely human, until Focalor succeeds in convincing her of her capability to take on the burden of turning a prophecy on its head and becoming a star in the making. Once the curse is placed upon Furina, her Pneuma-aligned outfit is seen most often in the story, until Focalor's death, of course. From that point on, Furina is seen exclusively wearing her dark-coloured clothing, representing her return to humanity in its entirety. It's worth noting that the difference in Furina's kit while in her Ousia alignment is representative of her more childlike traits. She is a lover of stories about fantastical adventures and has an affinity for small animals. Her elemental skill while in this state summons 3 of these creatures, which she first read about in a storybook many years previous. Her being the one to send these creatures out to the stage could also be symbolic of her new behind-the-scenes roles in theatre productions. As a human, she is now more interested in taking part from behind the curtain. Now, moving on to Pneuma. I came to find out that this word is actually pronounced more like pneuma in Greek, so I'll be going with that pronunciation just for the remainder of this section. The English word pneumatic is derived from pneuma, and refers to something that contains or is operated by air or gas under some kind of pressure. Even more recognisably, the respiratory infection pneumonia also gets its name from pneuma. Wow, fun fact about diseases. Normally I'm giving you plant facts, this time I'm giving you facts about diseases. What a turn this has taken. Ancient Greek philosophers put the idea forward that a connection exists between breath and life. The breath in this line of thought is what they refer to as pneuma. It was responsible for every function of every living being and organism, both medically and philosophically. This led them to the idea that pneuma was the driving force behind someone's soul or psyche. Later, the term was used in religious contexts associated with spirit and the divine. Pneuma in the world of Tevat can therefore be thought of as the substance which breathes life into divinity. Furina's body and soul were the perfect vessel for carrying both divinity and burden in Focalor's eyes. As such, these 2 immaterial substances coexist within her, representative of her inherent duality, and a constant reminder of the task she must fulfill. Furina's elemental skill whilst in her Pneuma form summons the Singer of Many Waters, a statuesque creature resembling an Oceanid. This Oceanid breathes life back into those who stand near it, fitting for the theories about pneuma we just discussed. The title of Furina's event wish shares a name with this summon, almost as if Focalor is saying, "Go forth, my child, and accompany these travellers for the remainder of their journeys." The name of Furina's outfit in-game is Coronated Prima Donna, and what we've seen of her throughout all of her appearances is that she very much lives up to this name. When the curtain rises, the star of the show is meant to shine bright on the stage, and even gorgeous costumes adorned with diamonds pale in comparison to her own dazzling brilliance. In this performance called life, she is the one who must shine the brightest. A lot of the garments Furina wears are similar to those worn by court officials and aristocrats throughout history, which makes sense for her, of course, being the god of justice. Her overall design and silhouette is quite asymmetrical. One of the more obvious examples of this are her heterochromatic eyes. Heterochromatic. That is so hard to say. Try it. I promise you, it's really hard. Anyway. Her right eye has a light blue iris and a deep blue pupil shaped like a water droplet, while her left reverses this colour scheme. In her Pneuma form, her hair transforms from a regular bob-style haircut to what is called a jellyfish cut. Long flowing pieces of hair underneath her shorter layer with little to no blending, making for a very dramatic and asymmetric appearance. Furina's hat is worn jauntily on the side of her head. She has one white glove and one black. The brooches she wears in her jacket do not mirror each other, and her long flowing coattails flow off to one side. While this asymmetry lends itself to an aesthetic purpose of resembling flowing water, there is of course a deeper symbolic meaning behind all of this. Along with resembling her dual arca alignment, just what does the concept of asymmetry mean for Furina? It suggests that a piece is missing, that she is one half of a whole being. Please hold that thought for a few moments. Justitia is the mythological figure more commonly known as Lady Justice. Her origins are in ancient Rome, introduced by the Emperor Augustus. She became a symbol of virtue and justice, which every emperor wished to associate with their regime, often using her image to proclaim themselves as protectors of justice. Did I mention she likes justice? Did I mention that? Her most recognizable image, often seen in the form of statues outside many courthouses throughout the world, is a goddess holding a sword in one hand and a scales in the other. The scales represent the equilibrium of consequences required for justice to be maintained, while the sword represents authority. Justitia's image is often depicted wearing a blindfold. During my research, I found out that this was originally meant as a satirical addition, intended to show her blindness to the injustice going on around her. As time went on, however, this has been reinterpreted as a symbol of her impartiality, judging fairly without regard for someone's wealth, power, or level of status. Furina's image seen on the statues of the seven around Fontaine show her only holding a sword, much like the weapon type she wields in-game. Where are the scales then, I hear you ask? Well, we now turn to the oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale. I fucking hate myself, man. At the end of the 4.2 Archon quest, we received confirmation that Focalors had essentially placed herself, along with the Hydronosis, inside the Oratrice all those years ago, once she had separated her humanity from her divinity. As such, Furina could only ever portray the image of one half of this entire being, leading to asymmetry in both her body's image and her soul. Overall, I think Hoyoverse really outdid themselves with Furina, along with the Fontaine storyline as a whole. I think I shared a similar opinion of her as many people did in the beginning. A childish, petulant girl who was keeping up a blatant facade in a very obnoxious manner, only to later learn of her centuries of suffering. Yeah, I felt pretty bad about that, alright. Her story quest absolutely blew my expectations out of the water as well. That end cutscene had me sobbing. Such a beautiful piece of music with a powerful message behind it. Truly the perfect way for Furina to begin the new chapter of her life. I quickly just want to say a huge thank you to Broccoli for suggesting this video idea to me. Writing and researching for it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and the stuff I managed to find out was mind-blowing. I'm always open to suggestions on video topics, so if there's anything tickling your brain from the world of Teyvat you'd like to see me cover, don't be shy, leave it in the comments. I love interacting with you all there, and over on my Twitter as well. Thank you so much for all of your support on the channel these past few months. I honestly have no idea what I did to deserve it. I have many plans for the upcoming year, all of which involve me squeezing my brain as hard as ever, so look forward to that. Well guys, I hope everyone has had a wonderful holiday season wherever you are. Stay safe out there, and I will speak to you all again very soon. Goodbye!